The Hill wrote an article expressing shock and awe at Trump's policies in regards to Russia. Now, everybody is aware of the current climate when it comes to Trump and Russia, and the narrative coming out of the mainstream media and the focus from the Democrats. I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is now the Democrats' main focus. Like, this is what they talk the most about. Corporate Democrats talk the most about this issue. Maybe this mixed in with how Trump is just so unhinged. So it's almost like they make a point to not hammer away on the policies, which is wild because Trump is just, in terms of his actual policies, in many ways, he is Mitt Romney. He is an establishment Republican extraordinaire. Packed his administration full of Goldman Sachs, cut taxes for corporations and the rich, deregulated everything in sight. You name the destructive right-wing policy. Endless war. He's doing all that stuff. But instead of talking about, that stuff, and instead of the Democrats selling a different vision, Medicare for all, free college, living wage, and the wars, they don't talk about that stuff. Why? They don't necessarily agree with all those policies. So what do you do when that's the case? You go, unhinged, unfit for office. And you say stuff like, he's Vladimir Putin's puppet. That's what he is. Well, when the people at the Hill decided to look into the policy angle of the Trump-Russia scandal, here's what they found. In surprise, Trump maintains many Obama-era Russia policies. The Trump administration has quietly maintained an Obama-era approach to countering aggression from Moscow, even as the president's dismissal of Russian meddling in the election and warm words towards that country's leader have scandalized Washington. It approved the largest commercial sale of lethal defensive weapons to Ukraine since 2014, a move that earned praise from both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill and implemented sanctions targeting people in Russia for human rights abuses under U.S. law. Some onlookers fretted the president might try to evade. Okay, let me pause. So they're not even right. What they're saying is, he continued Obama-era policies. That's not true. In fact, he's more hawkish than Obama. Obama refused to arm people in Ukraine because he said, listen, that's a direct escalation towards World War III. You're going to arm people in Ukraine who are fighting Russians. Well, then that's, this is just Cold War 2.0 turning into a slightly hot war. Because that's a proxy war. That's a proxy war. That's the West and the U.S. in Ukraine. By the way, a lot of the people who are actively fighting the Russians there are neo-Nazis. That's not an exaggeration. But Obama said, no, we're not going to arm these rebels because, number one, many of them are fucking neo-Nazis. And number two, do we really want to do World War III over fucking Crimea? That's what Obama said. I'm not going to arm them. And he caught a lot of shit from neocons and the deep state and the establishment when he said that. Trump is like, okay, I'll arm them. I don't care. Tremendous. Believe me. So Trump is arming Ukrainians who are fighting Russians. That is a giant escalation. Now, if the resistance was being competent, they would say, no, don't do that. Don't arm these people. Many of them are neo-Nazis. Don't arm these people. You want a fucking World War III? Is that what you want? But no, because the narrative is Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet. Foreign agent is running the U.S. government. The resistance is nowhere to be found. And I just told you, bipartisan praise. What do I always warn you about bipartisanship in Washington? Run for the hills when you hear bipartisanship coming out of Washington. Because the only time they agree is to screw you and to do more war. So what was the last bipartisan deal we had? To deregulate Wall Street and the big banks. Joe Manchin and a bunch of other blue dog Democrats agreed with Republicans. Hey, let's deregulate the banks more. That was the last bipartisan deal coming out of Washington. Now you have bipartisan praise of arming Ukrainians to fight against Russians. It's amazing how it doesn't matter how hawkish he gets, doesn't matter how right-wing he gets in his policies. The resistance argument is, why don't you go further right-wing? Oh, that is a recipe for disaster. And then again, so he implemented sanctions. He signed the sanctions bill that Congress passed more sanctions on Russia. He was like, fine, I'll sign it even though I don't want to. He said, I don't want to, but he signed it. And then the argument became, I'm not kidding about this. People would be like, but he hesitated in implementing them, so that proves he's Putin's puppet. Are you fucking kidding? That's your argument? Sure, he's escalating, but he didn't do it he did it in a timely fashion, or he didn't do it in a timely fashion. He escalated, but it took him a little longer than I expected, so therefore he's his puppet. This is the argument they're making. I'm not kidding about this. People have tweeted me about this, like, Kyle, so naive. Sure, he increased sanctions, but it took him a little while. Yes. Oh. All right, so let's continue. I'll give you more information. It increased the budget for the European Deterrence Initiative, an effort begun under former President Obama to bolster allies' defenses in response to Russian aggression, and deployed U.S. soldiers to Poland as part of a majority U.S. NATO task force. And it is poised to announce more sanctions against Russia, faced with a January 29 deadline to name targets under a separate law grudgingly signed by President Trump over the summer. Even some Obama officials call the approach mainstream. Quote, the policy has been in continuity with the Obama administration post-2014 after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, said Daniel Fried, who under Obama served as the State Department's sanctions coordinator. I think the actual policies on the ground have been pretty good, said Fried, who also worked as a senior official on Russia issues during the Bush administration. But those policies have been obscured by the president's unusually warm rhetoric toward the Kremlin. So that's it right there. That explains it. So because Trump dared to say, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we got along with Russia? Because he dared to say that, people are unbelievable. Fucking Putin's puppet over here who doesn't want to, escalate to World War III. I think he's been compromised. I think he's a Manchurian candidate. Because of his rhetoric, Democrats lose their shit and they go, see, Putin's puppet. Meanwhile, all of his policies, they say it's the same as Obama's. They're wrong. It's more hawkish than Obama. He is being more hawkish than Obama because he armed Ukrainians. And I just told you, increase sanctions, increase the budget for the European Deterrence Initiative. So in other words, all of Trump's rhetoric about, hey, we need to move away from NATO or reform NATO because we pay too much and they should pay more and all that stuff. Nonsense. He's actually increasing. He's increasing funding for it. So let me explain to you what's happening. This is Trump going, yeah, I don't care. Whatever the establishment wants to do, you do in terms of Russia. I don't care. And in his mind, this is him disproving the Democrats who say he's Putin's puppet. But what's the problem with that? The problem is, how would Trump disprove that he's Putin's puppet? By being more aggressive and being more hawkish. And what's crazy is that even when he acts more hawkish, as he's doing, Democrats go, nah, not hawkish enough, sir. Oh, no. So now the resistance argument is, why don't you go full right-wing and go to escalate to World War III with Russia? And listen, that's the problem. And people have gotten mad at me, why do you not cover the Russia thing exactly like the mainstream media does? Because I don't agree with them. Rachel Maddow did a segment where she said, if Trump removes NATO troops from Russia's border, that proves that Vladimir Putin has the pee-pee tape of him. So in other words, the only way Trump can prove you wrong, that he's not Putin's puppet, is to continually keep us on the brink of World War III. Don't you see a problem with that, Rachel? And by the way, what a weird assumption. I mean, you want to talk about Trump derangement syndrome. What a weird assumption. If he moves us away from the brink of war by removing the NATO soldiers, obviously Putin has dirt on him, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe Trump doesn't want World War III. That would be my takeaway. Oh shit, good. He's removing the troops from NATO's border. So in other words, now even if Trump does the right policies, he's going to be smeared as, well, see, told you, totally soft on Putin. But see, that's why I want to ask all the people who push this Russia stuff all day long. I want to ask them. So forget all the things I think that, you know, this happened or that happened and he's doing their bidding and yada yada. Put all that stuff aside for just a minute and you tell me every policy you favor in regards to Russia. What do you favor in terms of Ukraine? Do you want to arm Ukraine? What do you favor in terms of sanctions? Do you want to sanction Russia? And what sanctions exactly are appropriate? Do you want to keep NATO troops on the border? Do you want to increase funding to NATO? Answer all those for me. And the disgusting thing is, I think the overwhelming majority of the hashtag resistance would say all those policies that they prefer, it's the right-wing side of those policies. Escalate further, arm the people in Ukraine, and that's where my core disagreement is with them. I don't agree with that. I want to move away from World War III. I do want to get along with Russia, because I want to get along with everybody. I don't want to be buddy-buddy and hold fucking Putin's hand and frolic in the park and ignore his human rights abuses. Of course I don't want to do that, but do I want to have at least a neutral relationship so we're not living on the fucking brink of war with another nuclear-armed power? Yes! That used to be the Democratic position. Early in Obama's time in office, that was the Democratic position. Remember when Obama mocked Mitt Romney in 2012? Because Mitt Romney said, Russia's the biggest threat to the United States. And Obama said, the 1980s called, they want their foreign policy back. Al-Qaeda is the biggest threat to the U.S., not Russia. I want that kind of Democratic Party back. The one that says, no, I want to kind of make peace with people who we don't agree with and who we have issues with. But no, now if Trump makes peace with them, see, proves that you're a Manchurian candidate and you're his puppet and you're his bitch. That's my problem with this stuff. And by the way, it's also a matter of evidence. People say, oh, Trump or Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump. What? Okay, where's your evidence? Virtually everything they point to has been retracted by the media that originally reported it. Isn't that funny? And then again, they scream about Russia, Russia, Russia. Meanwhile, what happened with Michael Flynn? Michael Flynn is indicted because this motherfucker took money from Turkey, over $500,000 from Turkey, to push in Washington the idea that, no, don't arm the Kurds. The Kurds don't want to arm them to fight ISIS, even though that would make sense because they're the best fighting force in the region against ISIS. Don't arm them. Why? Because stuff and things. I wouldn't arm them because he got paid to take that position. So there's a real scandal. There's a real Turkey scandal. Holy shit. Turkey is paying for influence to get whatever policy they want in Washington. There's a foreign power controlling your government, and it fucking happened. That happened. Ukraine, same thing with Ukraine. Paul Manafort and Ukraine. Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia. They paid him, what, $250,000 to stay at his hotel? Why? Because they actually spent $250,000? No! They gave him $250,000 so that they could buy weapons. They bought favoritism. This is the exact kind of shit we got mad at Hillary Clinton about for the Clinton Foundation. Bill's going around the world giving shitty speeches, getting paid millions of dollars so that Hillary Clinton can approve arms deals for brutal dictatorships. What the fuck do you think's happening with Trump and his hotels and his businesses around the world? Saudi Arabia gives him way more money than they actually spent at his hotels. They shouldn't stay at his hotels in the first place because there's a conflict of interest there, but they stay there, give him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then look at that. Trump approves an over $100 billion weapons deal. Trump opened 8 new businesses in Saudi Arabia during the campaign. So he takes money from a foreign government, Saudi Arabia, and does their bidding, and nobody says, Saudi Arabia scandal, Trump's a puppet to Saudi Arabia. Well, you fucking should, because we have the evidence on that. We have the evidence on Ukraine. We have the evidence on Turkey. We have the evidence on Saudi Arabia. We have the evidence on 5 or 6 different countries because Trump does business with 12 different countries. We have direct evidence of, hey, they give you money, you do favors for them using your position of authority. That is a clear violation of the Emoluments Clause in the Constitution. But no, instead of bringing that up, what do? Russia, even though you've done no favors for Russia, even though you've been more hawkish and more right-wing with them, Russia. Well, this is why the Democrats are squandering their chances to win in 2020. Trump has a chance to win again in 2020. I know you... No, come on, it's so bad, low approval rating. Oh, that's all true. But what the fuck do the Democrats stand for? If their only argument the entire time is Russia, fucking Russia, unhinged, Russia, and he's unhinged. Your argument of I'm not him was already tried. And how'd that work out? So you need to fight for Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and a New Deal and legalizing marijuana. Fucking stand for something. Stand for something. And one of those things that you should stand for is, hey, let's de-escalate with Russia. By the way, you want to oppose Trump-Russia? Good, I do too. I'll be the guy actually resisting and go, no. You want to arm Ukraine? Bad idea. Don't arm Ukraine. No. Don't implement more sanctions. That's a bad idea to implement more sanctions. No, stop giving more money to NATO troops to keep them on the border. Stop escalating to World War III. If you want to resist, there's a way to resist. Resist the actual policies.